Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the shadow of the Great Blue Hill in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We're so very honored and so wicked happy that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in our mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, GoodPod, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM. Wherever you find your favorite shows, you can find Reading with Your Kids. We have an absolutely wonderful show lined up for you today. Alyssa Brent Weissman will be here to celebrate her brand new middle grade novel. It's called So Oversharing. And later in the show, we'll have a listen back to a conversation we had with BBC parenting expert Sue Atkins. Imagine a time before time, when light first touched the world and the animals roamed wild and free. The Day Time Began is a breathtaking picture book that retells the biblical story of creation with vibrant rhyme and rich full-page illustrations. Perfect for ages 2 to 8, this keepsake book features over 160 realistic animals and an online animal ID guide so kids can learn as they explore. With bonus classroom resources and an acted-out story motions online, this book is a gift that brings the beauty of God's creation to life. Give your child a story that stirs up hope in a good and gracious God. The Day Time Began. Available now at thedaytimebegan.com. My friends, if you have ever thought about owning a business that's fun, rewarding, and makes a valuable contribution to kids' education, well, Brooklyn Robot Foundry is calling your name. I recently met Jenny Young. She's the founder of Brooklyn Robot Foundry. And let me tell you, she is incredible. Her passion for getting kids excited about STEAM, that's STEM plus art, it's contagious. I'm telling you. This isn't your average kids program. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is all about hands-on, screen-free STEAM fun. These kids get to build a different robot each class and take it home with them afterwards. Kids love it. Parents are raving about it. And now you can own a franchise and bring this incredible experience to families in your community. Now, this isn't your typical franchise. Brooklyn Robot Foundry is a mobile, flexible business with a deep curriculum that's making a real impact in schools and communities around the country. Franchise owners get a proven curriculum, full training, and support from a passionate team. So what are you waiting for? Please visit bit.ly/robotjed. That's bit.ly/robotjed. And let them know you heard about it on Reading with Your Kids. Join us right now in Christchurch in the beautiful nation of New Zealand. Our guest is returning to the show to celebrate her new middle grade novel. It's called So Oversharing. Please welcome to the show, Eliza Brent Weissman. Hey, Eliza, how are you?
All good. Alyssa, but thanks so much for having me, Jed.
Oh, my goodness. So, Alyssa, So Oversharing. I love that title, especially because it is very pertinent to the story.
It is, yes. So the story, So Oversharing, is about two very different 12-year-old girls who bond over the pains of having a mother who's an influencer who is constantly sharing details of their personal lives with all of their followers online. And I love the double meaning of the title because you can say their mothers are oversharing And then you can also say these girls are so over it.
Yeah, exactly. I imagine it must be incredibly difficult, especially for a young kid in those middle grade ages, to have a momfluencer in their lives that is sharing everything. So much pressure to be perfect.
There is, especially for one of the girls. So there's two main characters, and the book alternates perspectives between the two. And one of them, Willow, she's very confident, kind of defiant, a little bit rough around the edges. And her mom, like you say, has this brand called Moonbeams and Marigolds that just presents this really beautiful, aspirational view of motherhood and family life. And so everything Willow says, she acts like we live in a haze of soft filters and swoopy cursive and everything is perfect. And Willow is like, this is all fake. This isn't what my life is like at all. This isn't what I'm like at all. And there's all this pressure to be perfect when she doesn't feel like she is perfect. And she even, as the book goes on, becomes really into boxing, which is new for her, but she loves it. And her mother does not love it because that's very off-brand for Moonbeams and Marigolds. As she says, we don't box in this family, darling. We unbox. But the other girl, the other main character, Hadley, it's actually the exact opposite because her mom, Phoebe, has been blogging since Hadley was 2 years old on a platform called Phoebe and Jay. And her motto is keeping it real about parenthood because parenthood sucks. And so she really plays up the chaos, the craziness of family life. Hadley has 3 siblings, and all of her posts are really presenting Hadley and her siblings in a very negative light, or their most embarrassing moments. Hadley is she's starting in a new school, in a new town, and she's hoping nobody finds her mother's content, especially a potty training video from when Hadley was 3 that is particularly embarrassing and still out there getting her mother lots of new followers to this day.
Yeah. It's funny. I have a very vivid memory of my son starting kindergarten. Now, this is probably 25 years ago or more. And I having conversations with my beautiful wife and saying, I don't know if everybody needs to know that Chris's dad is a professional clown right away. Maybe we can let everybody know. And so we didn't make a big deal of it. His kindergarten teacher knew, but she kept it quiet, and she actually loved the idea. But then I was that dad is determined I'm going to go to every PTA meeting, all this. And so I had a gig, a week of gigs up in Maine, but the first PTA meeting or parent-teacher thing was on a Tuesday. So I finished my gig in Maine, took off my makeup, I thought, and went to parent-teacher meeting, and I'm walking around, and evidently I had a little bit of blue eyeliner on my eyelids, and everybody noticed it, and they were talking to me, yo, you check out the guy over there with the blue eyeliner.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
But fortunately, I was accepted. The kids, their classmates enjoyed having me come in and perform every year. And, so it wasn't, a big deal, but I was very conscious. My wife and I were very conscious of that, like how our actions and what we're into could affect our kids.
It does, yeah. And I think that's great that you were conscious about it. And it's different, too, when, he was starting kindergarten versus you can imagine if he was starting middle school. Right. And maybe when you're 5, you might not mind. People know it might be pretty awesome that your dad's a clown. But when you're 12, maybe not so much.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes. I had a friend of mine who told me, he said, your kid's going to be into it now, but when they get to be 12, they're not going to want anybody to know, and they're not going to want to have anything to do with you. Fortunately, both of my kids were very supportive and was always anxious to have me come in and perform. So I'm lucky.
That's great. Yeah, that's really great.
But my daughter is not going to ask me to perform at her wedding.
Oh.
Confident.
Well, that's too bad. Can you still dress up?
I had this conversation with my beautiful wife the other day. She's telling me what I'm going to wear. And I said, tie-dye shirt, right? And she said, absolutely. So, boy, yeah, the other thing, well, first, one of the things I don't want to miss it. Do you laugh when you come up with a line like the name of the Messy Moms blog? Remind me.
Phoebe and Jay,
Phoebe and Jay. Now that's great. And the other, we don't box here, we unbox. I could just hear that snooty voice.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have you come up with those lines?
I do. Phoebe and Jay was a very deliberate lot of brainstorming to figure out what the name would be, what the brand would be, that sort of thing. As I imagine most people who are serious about trying to become influencers would do the same. And I'm lucky because it's fictional, so I can come up with whatever works best. And then, yes, I actually, with Willow, with that unboxing line, which I am very pleased with, I struggled a lot with Willow's story. So to take it back a second, this is, I think it's my 11th or 12th middle grade book. And it's the first one that I cannot take credit for the idea of the book. So a couple of years ago, my editor at Penguin, her name's Michelle, she emailed me and said she'd been looking for a book about a kid who wants independence from a mommy blogger parent. And she thought that I would be a good person to write it if I was interested. So my first thought was like, me? Does she realize I'm not even on social media anymore? I left social media entirely about 6 years ago. And it turns out that was a big part of the reason why she wanted me to write it. She really liked in my previous novel, which I worked on partly with her. I had another editor who then left and Michelle took over towards the end of the book, The Renegade Reporters, that I think I spoke about on the show a few years ago. That book's about a group of 6th grade investigative journalists who uncover a digital privacy scandal. And so I did a lot of research and really dug into online, what's going on with all of our information online, how companies are tracking it, storing it, selling it, all of that stuff. And so she really liked the way that I explored all of that for readers who are in that 8 to 12 age range and just kind of looked at it from that age appropriate perspective and kind of posed a lot of questions, making people think and become aware of what's going on. And so she was hoping maybe I'd want to do the same I was kind of excited about this idea of privacy again and online privacy, but from a different angle, a much more personal angle. Because here it's, with all of that advertising stuff, it's theoretically somewhat anonymized and it's for ads, but here this is your own personal life and your photos and your details, and it's your own mother sharing that information, choosing to share that information with the world. And so apart from giving me that little kernel of an idea, Michelle said I could kind of do whatever I wanted to with it. And so I started doing some research, and I started playing around, and then I hit upon the idea of these two different girls with their mothers who have very different approaches to being influencers, very different types of content to come at it from two angles. But what was great about all of this is that I was able to sell the book to Penguin based on just a few sample chapters because Michelle was excited about the idea. But then once I did that, it was like, oh no, now I actually have to write it. And I was on kind of a tight deadline. And this was the very first time in my years of being an author. You always hear these authors being like, oh, and I'm on deadline, or like, thank you to my partner for keeping me caffeinated while I was on deadline. I've never had that before. Like, it's always been kind of like I work at my own pace, and I write a book, when it's done, I hope somebody wants to publish it. And this was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on deadline. And I was writing like crazy. And I wasn't really sure what to do with Hadley's story. Kind of developed very organically. She's starting at this new school. She kind of falls in with the popular girls because they hear her mother's an influencer and they think that's cool, but she doesn't want them to know which influencer, and it kind of was developing on its own. And Willow, I just couldn't I had a sense of who she was as a person, but I didn't know what her hobbies would be. I wasn't sure what she was into, and it was like every chapter was just her and being annoyed with her mom, and that wasn't, I felt like I was treading water in the middle. The story wasn't going anywhere. I kind of wanted her. I was talking to an author friend of mine who is a really great writing partner when I was stuck, and she'd read what I had, and we were trying to talk it out together. And I was like, I kind of feel like maybe Willow would be a skateboarder, but I know nothing about skateboarding. And my friend Sean, the author Sean K. Stout, also a wonderful middle grade author, she was like, well, you know tons about boxing. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. Because I box and I do Muay Thai kickboxing, which I've done for many years, and I love it. And I was like, oh, Willow could totally be a boxer. And then in that conversation, I was like, oh my gosh, no. And this is exactly what her mom would say is, we don't box, we unbox. And we were like, yes, that's it. So that kind of helped. I knew I had to work in that line somewhere, and that's a very long way of saying it helped get Willow's story moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, I had to cut about half of what I had written and start over, and now the deadline was approaching even more, but it all worked out once I had that direction.
That's great. Because that's a classic line. I mean,
thank you.
You see that in a movie, and people that's great. I imagine, one of the things we ask authors a lot here is, what kind of conversations do you think a family can have if they're co-reading, so oversharing together? I'm imagining that this could launch a lot of kind of uncomfortable conversations for parents, because I think there are a lot of, they might not be momfluencers, but there are a lot of parents oversharing, and you might have done kids a public service, because this would be a great way to bring up that conversation and go, yo, Mom, I'm kind of done with this. Can you knock it off?
Yeah, I think you might be right. I think that, with the rise of social media, there's been the rise of sharenting, as people say, and just parents sharing lots of information about their kids online. And when they're really little, they don't know what's going on, or, you don't really have to ask for consent, or if you do, they don't necessarily understand what you're asking for or what they're agreeing to or not agreeing to. And, I hope that it does spark a lot of conversations. I think we're frequently telling kids to be really careful about what they post online, with good reason. That sticks around forever, and you need to think about it, and you never know who's looking at it, or all sorts of reasons. But yeah, how often are maybe the parents looking in the mirror to think about what are they posting online about their kids, even if it's all really positive stuff? You just don't know what might happen. So to give a quick example, my son is currently really into competitive Scrabble, and he's playing a lot of Scrabble. And he's got, never in my life, Jed, would I think I would be arranging for a private Scrabble coach, but that is what's going on. And so he's being coached by a boy named Lewis, who's about 20, really nice kid here in Christchurch, who is a top tier Scrabble player. And there's a video online of Lewis, because when he was 8 years old, a New Zealand TV show featured him talking about playing Scrabble. And I consider it really cute, only positive, really great. At the time, he probably thought it was really cool. His friends thought it was cool, I would think, being on this TV show. But recently I asked him, I said, now that video, have your friends at university found that video? And he's like, oh yeah. He's like, of course, everyone always finds that video. And he's like, now I don't mind it so much. We laugh about it. But when I was like 12, 13, I really hated that video. And I had a bit of a lisp as a kid. And I just, and so something you think is maybe presenting someone in a positive light, you don't know how they're going to feel about it at the time or down the road. And so you just, I hope it does spark some conversation in that regard.
Yeah. I remember when my kids were very little, and I was starting my website, I hired someone to create it, and we had this great picture of me in my costume and makeup, and the two kids were with me with my props, and it was adorable. And at the age of, I think, 8 or 9, one of them said to me, Pop, we're not 4 anymore. Could you kind of lose that picture? And I was rebuilding my website, and I said, absolutely. I actually didn't even have access to that picture. The developer had it. And then 4 or 5 years later, I was online, and that image popped up. It was there. I Googled my name just to see what people were saying, and it was there. And it was a great moment for me. I was able to use it with the kids going, hey, come here, look it. I have no access to the picture. I don't have it, but it's out there and I can't take it down. There's nothing I can do, and it's not a big deal, but no, when you're online, everything you post is there forever.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, it's great that your kids felt comfortable saying that to you, to please take it down, and that you were willing to listen to them and to take it down when they asked. But unfortunately, I think for some kids, especially kids whose parents are making a living, creating content, and this is their job. And some of them, like Hadley in the book, her mother's made a lot of money and continues to make a lot of money. And it's allowed Hadley's dad to quit his day job and to follow his dream, which is opening a bookstore, which he's working on over the course of the book. And she's not, first of all, Hadley feels like she can't say anything because this is so important to their family. Actually, her mother is upfront about, with her followers and everything, that she actually pays for Hadley and the other kids for their role in the content, which she doesn't have to do. There are only 2 states currently with laws that say kids need to get even a percentage of the money that their parents make from content that they're in. But she's upfront about saying she pays them. And so, but Hadley feels like, okay, I'm getting paid now. I really can't say anything, but does that make it okay? The fact that I'm getting paid, that I'm still in this thing I don't necessarily enjoy. And so I think that some parents aren't willing to have that conversation or to take that stuff down, which is where the waters are kind of muddy, right? Which is what I love, these complex situations and giving people something to think about, something to talk about. And to paraphrase George Saunders, who was paraphrasing one of the great Russian writers, maybe Dostoevsky, he said, fiction shouldn't give any answers, but it should strive to clarify the question.
Okay. All right. I like that. So we've tackled online privacy. We've tackled the momfluencers. Are we doing a deep dive into AI next?
Oh, gosh. There is a lot there, isn't there? I feel like we're always, this book is still pretty timely, unfortunately, and so is the Renegade Reporters. We're always one step behind with the AI, it seems. AI has already taken all of my work to write stuff. So perhaps.
Yeah. It's taken all of every month. There's a someone in China decides on a certain day to download every episode, all 2,200 plus episodes of Reading with Your Kids. So it's great for my statistics. It's like, oh, look at what a great day it was today. But it's like, I know it's just training some AI somewhere.
Right, for the AI interviewer podcast, perhaps.
That would be spooky. That would be, I've said this many times here on the podcast. I'm delighted with AI and I'm terrified with AI. So I'm covering my bets and I'm very polite. Anytime I use AI, I always say please and thank you. And remember, I was one of the nice guys.
Yeah.
Tell me, what is it about this middle grade audience that you enjoy writing so much for?
I think part of it is just it comes very naturally to me. I think I'm secretly still 11 years old inside. Back when I was in college, I studied writing at Johns Hopkins, and I would write these stories for class that I thought were for adults, and everyone would be like, kids would love this. And so it's just, I guess, my natural voice goes to that place. And I think that it's just such a great age. I mean, I tried for a little while to write a YA book, and I just couldn't do it. I don't have that. I have very vivid, clear memories and really fond memories, actually, of high school, being a teenager. I had a great high school experience. I had like the more difficult stuff a little bit earlier. Maybe that's partly why I like middle grade too, where I can tap into it better. But I just don't have that angst or that edge that you kind of need for YA. I've recently started writing picture books, or had more success with picture books that I've written, which is great. But that middle grade, it's just, I think there's something about that age group that it's a time in books where, well, first of all, kids, it's such a golden age of reading for so many kids, where you never read books the way you read books when you're 10 years old, you know, and you just like devour everything an author has ever written. And I think middle grade readers they're so smart, they're so savvy, but they're also really demanding. Like, I know so many adults who, if they're going to read a book, if they start it, they will finish the book no matter what, even if they hate the book, or they'll give it 50 pages or something. A middle grader will give a book like a paragraph, right? And then be like, I'm bored, and stop at any time. You've really got to hold their attention. They want a really good story. They demand a lot from you. And the other thing I just love about middle grade is that it can be funny. And there are so many funny books. I mean, I think that one thing I've been pleased in some early reviews of So Oversharing is yes, people are talking about how timely it is and these important topics, but also people have pointed out that it's funny, which I'm glad to hear. It's probably has the least humor of all of my books, but there is always humor in there. And it's just about telling a good story. You know, it's not about how clever I am as an author or fancy things I can do with language or trying to say something very deep and important. It's just about getting through to these kids, connecting with them where they are, making them want to keep turning the pages, and then ideally, if I can, making them laugh and making them think.
That's great. I love that. We recently had an author in here talking about they took her very successful middle grade novel and she turned it into a graphic novel. As we're talking about So Oversharing, it seems like a perfect book for a graphic novel.
I think it would be a great adaptation if you are listening in the publishing world. I've actually I've written the script of a graphic novel that is under contract. It is moving very slowly through the publishing pipeline. It kind of got held up by some changes at publishers and things like that. So I don't know if I can say too much about it, but I am really excited about that. And I think that, graphic novels are a really cool, exciting, relatively new space that, my kids can't get enough of them. They can't keep them on the shelves at the libraries, at the stores. So I'm excited whenever that book finally makes its way into the world to be part of that. And it would be really cool to have So Oversharing adapted as well. It helps you reach some new readers too, who might not be quite as willing or able yet to dive into, a regular 300-page novel, but really love comics.
Well, let's hope there's somebody in within the powers that be that hear this, and you'll be able to come back in a year or two to celebrate the graphic version of So Oversharing.
That would be awesome, unless it's the AI that's downloading it and creating that version instead.
Okay. Well, hopefully it's not listening, but. Remind everybody where they can go to find out more about So Oversharing and find out more about you.
So you can get So Oversharing in bookstores now. It's also available as an ebook and an audiobook with 2 phenomenal narrators. You can learn more about the book and about me on my website, which is EB as in boy Weissman, EBWEISSMAN.com. And even though I am not on social media at all, I still love hearing from readers, love hearing from kids, from teachers, book clubs, anybody. You can contact me through my website.
We've had a great time speaking to the author of So Oversharing. Our guest has been Alyssa Brent Weissman.
You got it.
I'm so nervous. Thanks so much for being part of the show.
Thank you, Jed. I really enjoyed it.
Before we invite our guest into the studio, I would love to invite you to visit a very special website. It's clownswithoutborders.org. Clownswithoutborders.org. This is a group that I absolutely adore. I am part of Clowns Without Borders, and I had the honor of being part of the 2023 tour of El Salvador. I had so much fun joining with artists from all over the world to bring a smile to people who really needed it and really appreciated it too. And we would love for you to join us as a monthly joy maker. The Joy Makers, they're a family of people just like you who love to laugh and make other people feel good. So please take a moment and visit clownswithoutborders.org and consider joining me as a Joy Maker. Hey, my friends, would you like to bring a little warmth and magic into your home? Let me introduce you to Welsh Mountain Candles, hand-poured on a working Amish farm in Lancaster County. These all-natural, toxin-free candles are made from palm wax with a stunning crystallized glow, rich coconut apricot wax for a creamy finish, and essential oils for a pure, refreshing scent. Whether you're winding down, setting the mood, or just love a great candle, Welsh Mountain Candles are crafted with care and made to be shared. Visit welshmountaincandles.com. Use the promo code JED10 for 10% off your order today. Light up your home with Welsh Mountain Candles, where every candle tells a story. Join us right now from right outside beautiful London in the United Kingdom. Our guest is here today to share some fantastic parenting tips. She is a parenting expert for the BBC and for Disney. Please welcome to the show, Sue Atkins. Hey, Sue, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you, and thank you for inviting me. We're having a heat wave, so you can see I'm rather hot and bothered. But hey, I'm very, very good, thank you.
Hot and bothered is, I guess, better than being cold and dead.
Yeah, yeah. If there's a choice, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, parenting. I started the Reading with Your Kids podcast. A lot of people think, oh, you have this love of literacy. And I do. And you really want kids to read. And I do. But the reason I started the Reading with Your Kids podcast is that I understand the relationship that I have with my now adult kids who are 26 and 29. And it's really a strong relationship. We're really close. I know that those relationships and the conversations that we are having today started when my kids were infants and I started reading to them. And so I started the Reading with Your Kids podcast to encourage families to read so they would get that bond, that closeness. If you want to talk to your kids about drugs and alcohol and all that other kind of stuff, the time to start is when they're babies. And you're not talking to your babies about drugs, but you're talking to your babies about flowers and what do they think about that. But you're the parenting expert. So what did I write when I launched the podcast?
Absolutely. Yeah, but as you're speaking, I'm just thinking, absolutely agree with you, because you build those bonds, you build that connection, you develop their thinking, critical skills. But it's more than that, that emotional connection you have with them and that openness and that willingness to share with them. And books and reading are actually quite a good way in for all sorts of topics, whether they're toddlers or teenagers. So starting that off by having that intention, by listening to them, by being interested in them, then you're absolutely right, because then you can have those big conversations naturally without sort of having to sit down and think about it. It just comes up naturally and you can deal with some of the things that you want to talk to them and the wisdom perhaps that you want to pass on to them.
You mentioned two things that I think are so important and I think it's worth repeating over and over again. When we're reading with our kids, it's giving us a chance to listen to our kids and be interested in our kids. Can you talk a little bit more about why that's so important?
Well, underpinning all my work that I've done over the last, 18 years is about a passion to give a child the gift of self-esteem and hopefully a gift of confidence. And you do that by, there's a poster that goes around social media that says, children spell love T-I-M-E, that I created, because I think it's so important to give your children time. They don't need all the fancy toys. They don't need all the fancy gadgets. Actually, at the end of the day, they spell love T-I-M-E. So spend time with them, talking to them, not at them, reading to them. playing with them, eating with them around a table regularly, be actively involved in their lives. And I created this idea on a Feel Good Friday. It's called the ING activities. And that is cooking with them, playing with them, reading, all those ING kind of verbs, even if it's just riding bicycles with them. You are creating memories that last a lifetime. You're involved in their lives. It builds their self-esteem because they know that they're important. And then you can enjoy family life together and guide them, not sort of sledgehammer them if they're kind of sometimes going in the wrong direction.
I love that. I think sometimes we forget, and especially when our kids get to be older and get to be in those middle grade ages of 12 and 13 and 14, where our kids' behavior and the words they're saying is, I hate you, I don't want to be with you. In reality, we are still the most important person in our kids' lives.
Without a doubt, you are so right. And people, parents come to me because they're finding the relationships are changing. You can't speak to your 14-year-old the same way as you did when they were 4. You have to bend and develop and change and go with the flow. They're actually becoming, interesting adults, but they've got one foot in sort of immaturity some days, the next foot in sort of maturity, because they're neither an adult, neither are they a child. So it's a difficult sort of transition, perhaps for everybody, but go with it. And I often found the teenagers so interesting because they get so interested in all sorts of things like climate change or poverty or, the news or politics, whatever it may be that is their interest. And so instead of trying to shove your thoughts down their throat, how about stepping back and listening to them and engaging with them and say, even simple things like, well, tell me why you like that video on TikTok. Why do you like that band? I don't think everything that's modern is awful, but balance it out with trying to get them off some of the social media and get them thinking and working out if it's fake news and all of that. So you can have really interesting conversations with your kids as they start maturing.
Yeah. I think that's really important. You mentioned, these things that we're hearing, TikTok and fake news and all these buzzwords that are buzzing around us all the time. And I think we really need to keep in the front of our minds as parents that we are responsible for helping our kids grow into the human beings that they're meant to be. We're not supposed to sit back and allow TikTok or the media or social media to raise our kids.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. We need to be proactive. We need to be open-minded, but we are their parent, not their friend. And we have been around longer. We do hopefully have a bit more wisdom. And so rather than it's how you say it, and it's when you say it, and it's what you say. But your tone of voice and your body language counts for so much, particularly with teenagers and with kids generally, but certainly in that sort of older bracket where they don't want to feel judged all the time, or they don't want to feel that you're a fuddy-duddy. But you have to nurture them. You have to kind of guide them. You have to sort of show them, because we are older. We are wearing the t-shirt. We've been there. We've done it. We've kind of, even if it's not TikTok, we've had similar stuff. We've been around a while. So that's why relationships are so important. And then we come back to the idea of even reading and talking and listening to our kids, because that nurtures the relationship that makes those conversations much easier later on.
Yeah. I don't know about you, Sue, but I would have had so much fun with social media and all the different technological tools that kids have these days. But I'm really glad they didn't exist, because I know that there would be some really cringe-worthy, embarrassing stuff and dumb things that I would have done that I would have displayed on social media, and it would have lived forever. And thankfully, the statute of limitations has run out. All the memories are gone. Most of the people are dead. And so no one has to know about those dumb things I did as a kid.
And that's the interesting thing, isn't it? Because children and young people live in the moment and they don't think about that. And yet you have to kind of guide them and explain to them in a way with it's the way you say it. But actually employers Google you before they even think about getting you into a job or going for an interview nowadays. So, that is the difficulty. If you put up some goofy, silly stuff up there, it's going to find that, it's going to be behind, it's going to be around you for quite a while. But that is youth, isn't it? And that's the difficulty, finding that balance so that we don't ban stuff, we don't put them off, but we try and show them that you've got to think a bit of a bigger picture to what you're up to.
Yeah. You mentioned something, you don't ban things. That's something I learned, and I just happened to be taking a media literacy course when my daughter was entering middle school. And one of the things, and it was surprising that the course was being taught by a Catholic nun. And the first thing she said in the class was, don't try to ban anything because they're going to see it. They're going to use it. They're going to be involved with it. Instead, engage with it. Sit down, experience it with your kid, and then talk about it. And what fantastic advice that was.
Right. Fantastic advice. That is absolutely on the money, as we say over here in the UK, because that is the secret to it. Because as soon as you ban something, it becomes incredibly interesting, doesn't it? And the teenage years are all about taking risks and pushing against your values and pushing against what you stand for, because they're trying to find their own values and find out. They come through that phase, but that's so great. That's why I say don't ban things, find balance in it, get engaged in it, get interested in it. You may not really want to get involved with it long term, but they'll appreciate the fact that you are curious with them, and it will start conversations, which is what it's all about, really.
Yeah. And what a great way to talk to our kids about the fact that whatever they put out there online lives forever. Sit down, watch a goofy TikTok video with your kids, laugh about it, then talk about, whoa, what do you think is going to happen when this person goes for a job? The employer is going to see that. Do you think that's going to help them get the job or not help them get into school? And that way, and the kids can add those things up in their own mind. So instead of sitting down and saying, don't you dare put something online that's embarrassing, they figure it out themselves. They're going, oh, yeah, I laughed, and, yeah, that's going to come back to haunt that person.
Loads better that way, isn't it? Because the more you try and tell, and the more you try and sort of actually a good open-ended question, they just leave it with them, because actually they go, gosh, yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good question.
Hey, what do we say with our kids? So we're talking about the fact that, hey, your employers are going to Google you. They're going to go on social media and see what you've been posting. When your kids turn around and go, well, that's not fair.
Well, life isn't fair, is it? There's another life lesson right there.
Oh, well,
but, it's about conversations, isn't it, I suppose? What would you have said?
That's exactly what I said, is, life's not fair, and I'm sorry. There's not a thing I can do about it.
Yeah, and that is a tough lesson to kind of learn, isn't it? But these are the things, that's why I come back to time and time again with parents, is about giving them confidence to say things and not be frightened. I've noticed over the few years that I've been doing this, the 18 years, it's changed a bit. The dynamic is that parents want to be their kids' friend. Well, they've got loads of friends. They don't need you to be their friend. You can get on really well with them. Like you're saying, you get on so well with your kids. They're similar ages to both of mine, actually. And I get on enormously well with both of my kids too. But I don't really want to know some of that information about Saturday night. And then when I do need to be able to sort of call them out and say to my son, do you know what? I don't really want a text message for my birthday. I would really love you to send me a birthday card. I had to do that one recently, actually.
Well, you're right. It is. It's important. Sue and I were joking about the fact that both of us learned the lesson that with our adult kids, it's really important for us to kind of sit back and when they're making choices and the choices don't necessarily align with what we would have chose, we need to learn to sit back and say, hey, if that makes you happy, that's wonderful. You're not hurting yourself. You're not hurting anybody else. Go for it.
Yeah. And that's what parents find very hard. And certainly you get so used to, don't you? When they're little, you're telling them all the time. You're teaching them all the time. And then that's that transition where I work with a lot of families going through change of the teenage years. And then, as we say, going into the adult years, where you can't control some of that. You can have conversations around it, but you can't, make your kids live the life that you want them to live. It is about them finding their own way, isn't it? And you've empowered them, hopefully, with your values, with good sort of grounding character, so that when they go off and they do different things, perhaps you think, oh gosh, I don't know if I fancy that for myself, or did I really want them to do that? But they're going to learn loads that way, aren't they? They're going to fail forward, is what I call it. They might make a mistake, but then they'll learn it, not the hard way, but they'll learn it for themselves. Far more powerful than just you nagging them or telling them that that's going to be a disaster.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. What's the biggest topic that you're hearing from parents these days in your work, either for Disney or BBC? What seems to be the biggest concern that parents have?
Well, at the moment, certainly here in the UK, it's the cost of living crisis around finances. We have huge problems here with energy. We have, we're recovering from the pandemic. So I've got a series of talks that I'm planning actually for the autumn around post-pandemic parenting. If people want to let me know what are the key topics they'd like me to do those talks on, I'd love to hear from them, because it's not about me, it's about what you're struggling with. But certainly at the moment, it is around worry about how to talk and teach the kids. I've just written a blog actually around some tips of how to talk to your children about money. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. In fact, it's a learning opportunity, and say that things are going to change a bit. Things are a bit tougher. We won't perhaps have so many treats and so many outings that we might have had. You don't want to frighten them. You want to reassure them, whether they're toddlers or teenagers. But certainly with your 15-year-old, you could say, look, it's really expensive when you leave your console on or you leave your phone plugged in for so long and you don't turn stuff off after you finish. If you could pull together with us, that will save us on some of those bills. And with your 5-year-old, you can get them turning off the lights. Perhaps they can help you look for, food in the supermarket that's not a brand. They'll learn the idea of money and saving, but don't frighten them. They will need you to feel safe and secure. But these are some of the topics that I noticed. It's a post-pandemic parenting now. Also, some children are still suffering from anxiety and slight uncertainty. Now you throw that into the mix, they're having to really learn resilience. So on my website, actually, I've got a free ebook, The 9 Key Skills of Resilience, you can download and read, just to give you some ideas around how to help your kids handle all this uncertainty that we're living through.
It certainly is a difficult time. We've talked here in the podcast, when you're talking about somebody like me who's almost 100 years old, 2 years being locked up, it's a drag, but it's 2% of my life. When you're talking about somebody who's 5, you're talking about a huge chunk of I can't do the math in my head real quick, but you're talking about almost half of their life being spent in lockdown, being spent in this time of panic and uncertainty and fear. And that's a lot.
Well, it is. But if you then take their life from that time, which is 2 years, and they're going to live, please God, till they're 80, it is only a pinprick of time for them. And so how you handle things is always what it's about. It's that oxygen mask. If you're in a good place, if you're well, if you're feeling strong, you're going to be in a far better place to be passing on calmness to your kids and being able to help them cope and help them with resilience. So, yeah, you see it in that whole term. I mean, I've done a lot of work with parents around their toddlers. I've got a toddler podcast myself, actually. It's called The Toddler Roadmap. I did 24 episodes of it because of parents, particularly of toddlers, anxious about shyness, about their language development, about their social skills with friendships, all sorts of things I cover, because I wrote it because parents were asking me all the time, I'm worried about my toddler. Masks are up, they can't even read people's faces and expressions. So all of these things I thought, well, take down the anxiety, here are some practical tips and advice. So if listeners are interested in toddlers, there's an absolute wealth of stuff over on my website around that stuff.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think it's really, really important. I think our kids are going to be dealing, and us, we're going to be dealing with the after effects of this for many, many years.
We are. And, you know, it's a strange time to be alive, you know. Don't even throw in the politics in America and in the UK. Don't even do that, because I will just go for it. But it is a difficult time. So you have to look at ways that you can get back control so that you feel at least grounded and centered. Because then you will be acting that out for your kids. And they don't know anything different, actually, do they? This is their lives. They don't know that we didn't have to go through all of this before. But it's about how we handle it and how we empower them. Because life is all about handling change, actually, isn't it? It's never all the same. Yeah. We're all growing older, even if you're 5 or you're 50. You know, everything is changing in life. And that's how you need to bend, not break. So these are gifts if we look at them as opportunities. I'm a glass half full kind of person, not a happy clappy Pollyanna, but I tend to see life in a more positive frame of mind. And so that you can pass that on to your kids, which will serve them in very good stead.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I've shared here in the podcast is, and I know, I think both of my kids, but I definitely know when my daughter kind of learned this lesson when she used to come out on the road and tour with me as I was doing my educational magic shows. And, you know, when you're traveling around the country for 3-4 weeks at a time, stuff happens. And in the moments that those stuff happens, she was able to turn to me and say, this is going to make a good story someday.
Well, isn't that fantastic?
Yeah. And I think that that's a great way, even for us as parents, when we're going through something and we don't know how things are going to go out, I think it's perfectly okay to turn to our kids and go, well, I am not sure how this is going to turn out, but it's going to be a great story when we get through the other side.
I love that attitude. I just love that. I'm going to use that with parents, the idea of turning that into a great story. And we'll laugh perhaps about this at another time, you know. That just puts things back in perspective, Jed. I think that's brilliant.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and we hope you'll join us for the next exciting episode of the show. In the meantime, we love to connect with you on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at Jedley Magic on X. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/readingwithyourkids, and of course, our website is readingwithyourkids.com. And our readingwithyourkids.com, that is a great place to go to find out about the other podcasts in our portfolio, namely Real Magic. That is a great podcast you can listen to with your kids. Your kids are going to fall in love with Daisy, Calvin, Augie, my 3 stage crew pups, as they join us on our adventures presenting real magic around the world to kids in schools and all sorts of different places, reminding kids that real magic happens when we are kind and respectful to one another. It would be very kind and respectful of me to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful, starting with Alyssa Brent Weissman. Please be sure to check out So Oversharing. Also want to thank Sue Atkins. What a great listen back we had with her. I want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Stella Sheree. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.